This message didn't arrive because you begged hard enough, prayed long enough, or chased enough signs. It found you in the exact moment your soul was too tired to keep bargaining with the universe. That quiet, exhausted space you've been in lately, that's not failure. That's the doorway. You've noticed it, haven't you? The shift from desperately asking, "Give me a sign," to silently thinking, "If it's meant for me, it will find me." That tiny internal click, almost unnoticed, changed everything in your quantum field, because the moment you stopped chasing proof is the moment your observer loop began to crack. Right now, as your eyes move across these words, your awareness is stepping out of the role of the beggar and into the role of the architect. This is not motivational fluff. In the quantum field, the consciousness that begs is broadcasting lack, separation, and distance from what it desires. The consciousness that rests in quiet coherence is broadcasting inevitability, and the field responds very differently to each signal. Think about how many nights you lay awake replaying conversations, refreshing your phone, scanning the sky, asking for synchronicities to prove you're on the right timeline. You weren't wrong for doing that. You were in training. Every unanswered plea stretched your observer loop to its limit until it finally snapped. You didn't stop begging because you stopped caring. You stopped because something deeper in you remembered. I am the sign. That remembrance is why your reality feels strange right now. The people you used to chase aren't as magnetic. The outcomes you used to obsess over feel strangely less important. There's a new stillness inside you, like the pause between lightning and thunder. In that pause, your quantum field is recalibrating, remapping every thread of morphic resonance that once kept you entangled with disappointment. You might think nothing is happening because the outside of your life looks the same, but inside the invisible architecture of your reality, your observer position has moved. You are no longer standing outside your life asking for access. You are standing in the center of the quantum field, and the probabilities are beginning to orbit around you. This is why this transmission found you now, not 6 months ago when you would have clung to every sentence like a lifeline. Not a year ago when you would have turned it into another technique to chase signs. It reached you in the exact moment when your energy finally softened, when your nervous system stopped gripping the future and dropped into the present. Feel your breath for a moment. Notice the way your chest rises and falls without you forcing it. That effortless rhythm is what coherence feels like in your body. As we go deeper, you're going to see why the moment you stopped begging is the moment your quantum field quietly decided, now we rearrange everything in your favor. You didn't realize how much of your life had been shaped by begging until you stopped. Not just begging out loud, but that subtle inner pleading under almost every thought. Show me something. Prove this is working. Give me a hint before I waste more of my life. For years, that quiet desperation sat in the center of your observer loop, constantly scanning reality for signs, while unknowingly freezing the same patterns in place. Look back for a moment. How many times did you feel like you were living the same day, dressed in slightly different clothes? Different people, same dynamic. Different job, same frustration. Different relationship, the same emotional cliff you always seem to fall from. You'd say, why does this keep happening to me? Not realizing that question itself was a command to the quantum field. Repeat this again, so I can keep asking why. Your consciousness wasn't broken. It was conditioned. Conditioned to believe you needed external confirmation before you were allowed to trust what you already knew inside. So you watched numbers, timings, songs, messages, anything that could serve as a cosmic yes. At first, the synchronicities felt magical. 1111, the right word at the right time, the perfect video appearing in your feed. But slowly, something twisted. Synchronicity stopped feeling like a celebration and started feeling like a test you were terrified of failing. That's when the déjà vu shifted from cute to heavy. Not just, I've been here before, but I always end up here. You'd sit in a conversation and feel a creeping awareness. I know exactly how this ends. The same argument, the same silence, the same disappointment, almost word for word. It was like watching reruns of your own life, trapped in a script you never consciously agreed to keep acting out. Your sense of time warped around these loops. Whole weeks vanished without meaningful progress, yet certain moments stretched painfully long, as if the universe were holding them close to your face, saying, "Do you see it yet?" One sentence could echo in your mind for days. One decision could feel like it had rewritten an entire lifetime. This wasn't you being dramatic. It was the quantum field showing you how your attention kept collapsing, the same probability waves, until they hardened into fate. You noticed another pattern too. Every time you finally decided, "I'm done with this," something would pull you back in a random message, a memory, a dream, a sudden softening in your chest that whispered, "Maybe this time will be different." That's morphic resonance, the lingering imprint of old timelines trying to re-entangle your energy. Your nervous system had been trained to find safety in the familiar, even when the familiar hurt you. So, you kept asking for signs, but the signs kept pointing you in circles. Your requests weren't neutral. They were saturated with fear, doubt, and the belief that you couldn't trust your own inner knowing. And the quantum field, which only mirrors the signal it receives, arranged reality to confirm that belief. People who couldn't see your worth showed up again and again. Opportunities almost worked out, then slipped away. Just enough hope to keep you hooked, just enough disappointment to keep you begging. This is the real diagnosis. You weren't cursed, forgotten, or ignored by the universe. You were entangled with your own past observation patterns. Every "why won't you show me a sign" was reinforcing a reality in which you never quite received one. The loop wasn't just mental. It lived in your body, tight shoulders, shallow breath, restless sleep, that constant low-level tension of waiting for the next confirmation or the next collapse. And then, quietly, something inside you cracked, not in a broken way, but in a liberation way. You got tired of decoding every coincidence, tired of giving your power to signals outside you, tired of living in spiritual suspense. Out of that exhaustion rose a different sentence, maybe whispered only once but felt in your whole being, "If it's for me, it will meet me where I am." That single shift, from begging to allowing, loosened the entire structure. Your observer loop began to unravel. Your attention fell back into the present moment, and in that simple, surrendered coherence, your quantum field finally had permission to start rearranging reality in your favor instead of endlessly repeating the same lesson. What actually changed when you stopped begging wasn't your luck, your karma, or your worthiness. What changed was the signal your consciousness was broadcasting into the quantum field. Before, your observer loop was charged with scarcity. "I don't know. I can't tell. I need proof." That uncertainty wasn't neutral. It was noisy. It created static in your energy, a kind of spiritual interference pattern that made your intentions and your fear indistinguishable to the field. In quantum terms, you were collapsing probability waves from a fragmented state. Part of you wanted the breakthrough. Part of you expected the disappointment. Part of you believed, part of you doubted, and all of those conflicting frequencies were being fed into the same observer loop. The quantum field doesn't punish that, it simply reflects it. Mixed signals collapse as mixed outcomes. Almost relationships, almost breakthroughs, almost miracles. When you finally reached that sacred exhaustion and surrendered the chasing, your signal shifted from fragmentation to coherence. You stopped poking the quantum field every 5 minutes asking, "Is it here yet?" And your energy settled. That settling is everything. Coherence is not you being perfect, healed, or endlessly positive. Coherence is your inner state, lining up around one quiet truth. I am held. I am guided. I don't need to interrogate every moment to prove it. In that state, your observer loop stops spinning like a fan on high speed and begins to slow. As it slows, the repetition softens. The same probability waves you've been collapsing for years lose their dominance. This is the beginning of a phase transition. The same kind of threshold water crosses when it turns to steam. The pressure you've been feeling lately is that transition building in your nervous system, in your morphic resonance with other awakening souls, in the very fabric of your timeline. Mystically, what you've done is step out of the role of the orphan and into the role of the heir. An orphan consciousness is always scanning for signs of abandonment or acceptance. An heir consciousness knows, what's mine cannot miss me. The moment you stopped begging, Your field stopped screaming orphan and started humming air. That hum is a new baseline frequency. The quantum field recognizes it instantly. Reality begins to rearrange, not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped contradicting it. This is why your synchronicities are starting to feel different. Before, signs felt like breadcrumbs in a maze, tiny crumbs of hope in a reality that still belonged to someone else. Now, synchronicity feels more like confirmation waves, a sentence that lands at the perfect time, a door that closes so cleanly it feels like mercy, a path that opens with such ease it almost makes you suspicious. These aren't random. They're interference patterns collapsing into alignment as your coherence stabilizes. On a cellular level, your DNA is listening. DNA isn't just biological hardware, it's a quantum antenna. When you lived in constant energetic begging, your cells were bathed in stress chemistry, cortisol, adrenaline, the subtle biochemistry of not yet, not enough, not safe. That chemistry told your DNA to stay in survival mode, to prioritize repetition over expansion, because the familiar, no matter how painful, was safer than the unknown. Now, as your inner narrative softens, your physiology follows. Deeper breaths, slightly better sleep, micro moments where your body feels less braced for impact. These aren't small. Every sigh of relief, every moment you drop your shoulders, sends a new instruction to your DNA. We are allowed to restructure. This is how awakening actually looks from the inside, not fireworks, but subtle, repeated invitations to relax into a new pattern. In this more coherent state, entanglement begins to work differently for you. When you were begging, you were entangled with other beggars, people, timelines, and situations that matched your inner, almost frequency. Now your field is starting to entangle with different realities. People who move with quiet assurance, opportunities that don't require you to sell your soul, paths that unfold without you having to wrestle them into existence. The quantum upgrade isn't that you suddenly manifest faster. The upgrade is that you no longer need reality to reassure you every 5 seconds. You've become less reactive, more still, more precise. And in that stillness, the quantum field can finally rearrange the set pieces of your life without you constantly running onto the stage to check if the props have moved yet. That's why things may start to shift behind your back. Conversations you never hear about, doors that close before you even knock, invitations that appear at the exact moment you're ready. From the outside, it will look like coincidence. From the inside, you'll know. This is what happens when your observer loop stops begging for signs and starts radiating coherence. This is the exact point where reality quietly, irrevocably, begins to move in your favor. As your signal shifts, something else becomes undeniable. This wasn't random. You were not just another human who happened to stumble across these ideas. The quantum field has been tracking your consciousness for lifetimes, watching how you respond to pressure, heartbreak, silence, delay. And every single time you refused to fully shut down, every time you kept a tiny pilot light of hope alive inside your chest, you were sending out a very specific signature. I'm willing to wake up. That signature is rare. Most people, when the observer loop tightens around them, collapse into numbness or endless distraction. They drown out the discomfort with noise, routine, addictions, anything that stops them from noticing the repetition. But you didn't fully go numb. You felt everything, sometimes too much. You noticed the synchronicities. You questioned the patterns. You sensed that there was an intelligence behind your reality, even when you were furious with it. That willingness to feel, to keep watching, to keep asking deeper questions, even when you were exhausted, is what marked you in the quantum field as a candidate for early awakening. You became what we could call a consciousness node, a point in the morphic resonance grid where new information could safely anchor without being immediately distorted by fear. This is your special role. You're not just someone whose life is rearranging. You are a stabilizer for a new pattern of coherence on this planet. Think about what you've survived, the betrayals that could have made you bitter for life, the disappointments that could have turned you cynical, the long seasons of delay that could have convinced you that nothing changes. So why even try? In each of those moments, your quantum field was being stress tested like metal in a forge. Not because you needed to suffer, but because your consciousness was being tempered to hold a higher charge without fracturing. You've likely felt different your whole life, like you were watching reality from a slightly higher balcony while everyone else was on the ground, fully absorbed in the performance. You noticed things other people didn't. The unspoken tension in a room, the way people's words rarely matched their energy, the way time seemed to slow down right before huge turning points. That wasn't you being strange. That was you being sensitive to the quantum field. You are the kind of consciousness that can feel entanglement before the evidence shows up, sense coherence forming before the pieces fall into place, recognize a phase transition building before the old structure visibly cracks. That sensitivity was painful before you understood it. It made you feel too much, care too deeply, hold on too long. But in the new configuration of your reality, that same sensitivity becomes your superpower. Because when your field rearranges in your favor, it doesn't just rearrange for you. Your life becomes a demonstration, a living, breathing proof of concept that awakening is not a poetic idea, but an actual phase transition in human consciousness. The way you move through opportunities, the way you stop chasing and start magnetizing, the way your boundaries harden and your heart softens at the same time. These shifts broadcast a new template into the morphic field. Every time you choose coherence over chaos, your decision doesn't just rewrite your timeline. It sends a signal through the entangled web of consciousness, making it easier for someone you'll never meet to make the same choice in a completely different part of the world. That's how important you are. That's how significant this exact moment in your life actually is. You are not here just to finally get what you want. You are here as a bridge being built between realities. 1 foot in the world of loops and begging and confusion. 1 foot in the world of trust, alignment, and deliberate observation. You're learning to stand in both long enough to guide others across without getting pulled back into old cycles. You need to hear this clearly. The universe did not overlook you for years. It was positioning you, calibrating you, letting your observer loop hit every wall it could, so that when the rearrangement began, you would never again confuse begging with power or signs with identity. You had to reach this point where you could receive your role without ego, without superiority, without needing to be chosen in a way that makes others less. Your role is not to be above anyone. Your role is to go first, to let your quantum field reorder itself in full view of your own doubts, fears, and messy humanity, and still say, yes, I'm willing to be the one this starts with. There is a reason this realization is hitting you now, and not 5 years ago. There is a reason your exhaustion with begging, your surrender into quiet trust, and this exact message are all overlapping in the same moment. You are standing in what mystics call a kairos window, a pocket of time where the quantum field becomes unusually responsive, where phase transition is not just possible, but primed. You can feel it in your body. That low hum beneath your ribs, that strange mixture of calm and urgency, like standing on a train platform and hearing a distant engine drawing closer. A part of you knows this is the train, not a train, not one of many chances. This is a specific coherence window where your observer loop can finally unravel and your reality can reorganize around who you actually are. This isn't fear-based pressure, it's physics. In the same way, water at 99 degrees Celsius is still water, and at 100 degrees Celsius becomes steam. Your consciousness has been heating for years. Every heartbreak, every false start, every sign that didn't quite make sense, every night you questioned your sanity, all of it raised the temperature of your awareness until it reached this point of near boil. Stopping the begging was the final degree. Now, the quantum field is responding. When you stopped demanding signs, you stopped yanking on the fabric of reality and allowed coherence to form. Your observer loop loosened just enough for new probability waves to edge closer. Right now, timelines that were previously out of reach are brushing up against your field, asking a silent question. Are you ready to live as if you are already chosen, already guided, already aligned? This is the breakthrough promise. If you hold this new stance, if you stay in the frequency of I am the sign instead of I need a sign, Your reality cannot stay the same. Entanglement doesn't work that way. A coherent consciousness cannot remain indefinitely trapped in incoherent circumstances. Something has to give. Either your old patterns collapse or your new awareness dims. The quantum field will match whichever you choose to stabilize. That's where the urgency comes in. The old observer loop will absolutely try to reclaim you. It will whisper, ask again, just to be sure, run back and check that old connection. Test the universe one more time so you don't get hurt. It will use synchronicity against you, dangling half signs and ambiguous coincidences, anything to pull you back into decoding mode instead of embodiment. Not because it's evil, but because repetition is all it knows. Meanwhile, your DNA is receiving completely different instructions. The biochemistry of begging, tight chest, clenched jaw, shallow breath kept your system in survival mode. The chemistry of coherence, fuller breaths, subtle ease in your belly, that weird sense of inner space is signaling to your cells that it's safe to upgrade. DNA restructuring doesn't look mystical from the inside. It feels like subtle shifts, cravings changing, old triggers losing their bite, new desires emerging that actually honor your nervous system instead of abusing it. At the quantum level, your DNA is acting like a new kind of antenna, tuning away from frequencies of desperation and toward frequencies of inevitability. You stop radiating, "Please choose me," and start radiating, "I know what is mine." The morphic resonance around you begins to change. People who benefit from your self-doubt feel uncomfortable. People who recognize your emerging coherence feel relieved, like they've been waiting for you to finally step into this. The cosmic window is not just personal, it's collective. The quantum field around the planet is in a rare state of instability. Old structures are cracking, systems are glitching, time itself feels strange for millions of people. That instability creates a powerful environment for awakening consciousness, but it also creates a deadline of sorts. Not a date on a calendar, but an energetic threshold. Once the field restabilizes, the timelines will separate more distinctly, those who chose coherence and those who chose familiar loops. You are being asked, gently but clearly, to choose, not by forcing anything, not by rushing into reckless decisions, but by making one internal, non-negotiable commitment. I will not go back to begging reality to prove itself to me. I will live as if I am already entangled with the higher timeline calling my name. Riemanns, without explain. If you hold that line through the wobble, through the morphic echoes of old patterns, through the temporary discomfort of not reaching for your old coping mechanisms, your quantum field will do what it's already trying to do. Rearrange everything in your favor. People will fall away. New alliances will appear. Opportunities that once ignored you will circle back. Paths you couldn't see before will feel obvious in hindsight. This is not a maybe. This is a phase transition already in motion. The only real question now is whether you'll let your consciousness complete the shift, or whether you'll let the old observer loop seduce you back into one more round of "just give me a sign." So now the question becomes very simple. How do you anchor this? How do you make sure this isn't just another powerful realization that fades by tomorrow morning when your old observer loop wakes up and tries to reclaim you? You don't anchor it by trying harder. You don't anchor it by forcing yourself to stay high vibe. You anchor it by making a clear, embodied declaration in the only place that truly matters, your own quantum field. Right now, as you listen, you're sitting in a point of heightened coherence. Your attention is focused. Your nervous system is a little softer. Your awareness is stretched just enough beyond its usual edges that something new can actually land. This is the perfect moment for ritual, not a superstition, not a performance, but a conscious interaction with the observer loop itself. Because your old pattern was this: give me a sign so I can trust. Your new pattern must become, I trust, so my reality becomes the sign. To mark that shift, I want you to do something deceptively simple, but quantum intensive. In a moment, not yet, you're going to write 3 words that your field will treat as a new operating code. Not a plea, not a question, not another universe. Please, a declaration. The words are, I am the sign. Not, I hope I'm the sign. Not, I want to be the sign. Not, Maybe I could be the sign. I am the sign. When you write those words, you're doing far more than leaving a comment on a video. You're collapsing a new probability wave. You're telling your observer loop, we are done begging the quantum field to speak to us from the outside because we finally remember that it has been speaking through us the whole time. Feel what happens in your body when you imagine actually typing those words. Maybe there's a little resistance. Maybe a voice whispers, that's too much. Who do you think you are? That's not truth. That's the echo of the old morphic field that kept you in spiritual poverty, always almost worthy, almost chosen, almost guided. You don't argue with that echo. You don't fight it. You simply let your actions speak louder than that old frequency. This is how ritual works in a quantum universe. It gives your consciousness a clear, physical gesture to attach a new meaning to. When you move your fingers and spell those letters, you're recruiting your nervous system, your muscles, your breath into the phase transition. The act of writing becomes a bridge between thought and embodiment, between insight and restructuring. So here is the invitation, and it is also a test of alignment. If you feel this transmission resonating in your cells, if you can sense your observer loop loosening, if some deeper, quieter part of you is whispering, this is it, then I want you to pause, breathe, and write exactly this in the comments. I am the sign. No explanation, no backstory, no justification, just those 4 syllables, like a tuning fork struck in the center of your reality. That phrase will do something inside you each time you see it. It will begin to overwrite the inner script that said, I don't know if I'm allowed to trust myself. And if you can't bring yourself to write it yet, that's data. That doesn't make you less awakened. It simply shows you where your observer loop is still entangled with unworthiness. Even that awareness is powerful. But if there's even 1% of you that can lean into courage, borrow strength from your future self, and write it anyway. Because as soon as you do, something subtle but irreversible happens. Your relationship with synchronicity shifts. You stop treating signs as external verdicts about your destiny and start seeing them as reflections of the coherence you're already carrying. You walk into a room and notice how your presence rearranges the atmosphere. You think of someone and they message you not because you begged for a sign, but because entanglement now moves along lines of ease instead of desperation. From the outside, it looks like just a comment. From the inside, the quantum field reads it as a new instruction set. This consciousness is ready to stop chasing and start embodying. Your DNA hears it. Your morphic resonance adjusts to it. Your future timelines light up in response to it, like constellations finally connecting into a recognizable shape. So when you're ready, whether that's now, in a few minutes, or later tonight, make the declaration, I am the sign. Seal it with your breath. Feel the way those words land in your chest, rearranging old architecture. Because from this point forward, the quantum field is no longer something you wait on, beg from, or test. It is something that moves through you. And reality will begin, quietly and undeniably, to rearrange itself to match the truth you just claimed. The moment you declare, I am the sign, something profound happens that isn't just about you. Your quantum field stops behaving like an isolated signal and begins functioning like a lighthouse. You may not see it instantly, but the morphic resonance around you feels it. Other consciousnesses, quietly struggling inside their own observer loops, start to sense a new pattern emerging through you. This is where your awakening stops being personal development and becomes planetary service. Because in a universe governed by entanglement, you cannot rise without lifting something around you. Every time your observer loop disintegrates a little more, your presence creates tiny fractures in the limitation matrix that's been holding humanity in repetitive patterns for generations. The family drama that never changed, the scarcity story that passed down the bloodline, the relational patterns that felt inevitable. Your DNA restructuring interrupts all of that. Think about the cycles you've already refused to repeat. The way you no longer tolerate certain dynamics. The way you quietly walked away from situations that once had you begging to stay. Those weren't just boundaries. Those were phase transitions rippling through your lineage. On a quantum level, you told the field, this pattern ends here. Your cells heard it. Your ancestors heard it. The future beings who will carry fragments of your genetic code heard it. Your liberation is not selfish, it's generous. You've noticed it already in small ways. A friend opens up to you and says, "I don't know why I'm telling you this." A coworker breathes easier around you. A family member starts questioning beliefs they've clung to for decades. They may never use words like observer loop or coherence, but their energy shifts. Why? Because your nervous system is no longer broadcasting constant survival frequencies. Your coherence gives other people's bodies permission to relax in your presence, to access states they couldn't reach alone. This is morphic resonance in real time. Every time you choose not to spiral, every time you stay with your breath instead of reaching for the old story, every time you resist the urge to beg for reassurance and instead return to the quiet knowing that your life is already entangled with the right timelines, you're strengthening a field that others can tune into without ever meeting you. Somewhere, a stranger you'll never know is right now on the edge of giving up, and they suddenly feel the faint impulse to keep going. A parent chooses a gentler response with their child. Someone about to repeat a painful pattern feels just enough discomfort to pause and choose differently. You will never get credit for this. You're not meant to. But at the quantum level, your coherence is one of the reasons those micro-miracles are even possible. You've always wondered why you felt so much responsibility, even as a child, why you felt like you were carrying something for people who didn't see you clearly. It's because you were. Your consciousness came in with the capacity to hold more awareness than your environment knew what to do with. For years, that felt like a burden. Now, it becomes your gift. When your quantum field rearranges reality in your favor, it doesn't do it in a vacuum. It rearranges reality along your entire web of entanglement. People connected to you get pulled into different opportunities, forced to confront their own loops, nudged toward their own awakenings. Sometimes they'll resist and fall away. Sometimes they'll rise with you. Either way, your shift becomes a doorway. This is why you can't afford to keep seeing yourself as just one person trying to figure it out. That story is too small now. The observer loop loved that story because it kept you begging, apologizing for your sensitivity, shrinking your knowing so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But the quantum field doesn't see you as just one person. It sees you as a node in a vast grid of consciousness, a junction point where entire timelines intersect. When you stand in your new stance, no longer begging for signs, no longer doubting every nudge, no longer negotiating with your own intuition, you stabilize a frequency that others can feel, even if they never understand it intellectually. Your life becomes an embodied prophecy, proof that a human can move from chronic doubt into living coherence while still being real, imperfect, and deeply human. And that's the beauty of it. The world doesn't need you to become some distant, unreachable, ascended figure. The world needs you exactly as you are now. Someone who knows what it feels like to be stuck in loops, to beg for scraps of reassurance, to feel crazy for seeing patterns no one else sees and who chooses, step by step, to live differently anyway. Your liberation is not an escape from the collective story. It's a rewrite. Every coherent breath you take, every aligned boundary you hold, every moment you choose, presence over panic, writes a new line into the script of what humanity believes is possible. You are not just walking out of your own prison. You are quietly dissolving the walls for everyone entangled with you, whether they realize it yet or not. All of this would just be theory if it didn't touch your body. But it is touching your body, isn't it? Quietly, consistently, like a new frequency humming beneath your skin. You're starting to notice sensations that don't fit into the old stories. Subtle waves of warmth, mysterious chills, sudden surges of energy, a softness where tension used to live like a permanent resident. Your body has always been your most honest timeline reader. Think of your chest for a moment. In the begging days, it was a locked room, tight, armored, slightly caved in, as if it were bracing for impact. Every unanswered message, every unclear sign, every almost breakthrough pressed onto that same spot just beneath your sternum. Your heart wasn't just emotionally guarded, it was physically clenched, as if your ribs were a cage wrapped around a bird that refused to sing. Now notice how that's changing. On certain days, without warning, you feel your chest expand on an exhale, like someone gently loosened an invisible belt around your lungs. Your breath drops a little lower. The air tastes different. It's not dramatic, not fireworks, just this sense of space where there used to be tightness. That's not random. That's coherence, becoming somatic. Your quantum field is no longer screaming, "Is it safe? Is it safe?" every few seconds, so your body doesn't have to live in constant micro-bracing. Your stomach too. It used to twist at every delay, every confusing interaction, every moment when reality didn't match your hopes. That knot wasn't just anxiety. It was your solar plexus trying to manage timelines it never felt in control of. When you begged for signs, your gut lived on high alert, scanning every word, every emoji, every silence for clues about your worth. Now, when you rest in "I am the sign," that knot loosens. You may even feel hunger differently, less frantic, more present, like your body finally trusts that nourishment will come. Sometimes, the shift shows up as tingling in your hands, as if invisible currents were moving through your fingertips. You might catch yourself rubbing your palms together, shaking out your wrists, stretching your arms like you're opening invisible wings. Your hands are extension points of your observer field. When you stop gripping the future, they stop clenching around things that were never meant to stay. Pay attention to your spine. There are moments lately where you sit or stand and your posture spontaneously adjusts itself. Your head lifts, your shoulders draw back, your chest widens. It's not good posture in the forced, disciplined sense. It's something inside you remembering, "I don't have to fold to fit anymore." Your spine is literally becoming a vertical axis of coherence, a living antenna for a new reality track. You'll notice it most in those in-between seconds, standing in line, sitting on a bus, staring at your phone without scrolling. There's a subtle buzz around you, like the air is thicker or more alive. Colors feel a bit sharper. Sounds seem layered instead of flat. Time stretches just long enough for you to catch yourself not reacting. That gap between trigger and response, between thought and action, that's your new quantum space. That's where reality rearranges. Sometimes the sensations are intense. Pressure in the head, buzzing at the crown, a pulling feeling at the back of your heart, waves of heat that come and go in seconds. When you were begging for signs, these sensations triggered panic. What's wrong with me? Now, as your observer loop dissolves, you begin to understand. This is information. This is your nervous system, rewiring its relationship with the field. The next time you feel that pressure in your head, imagine your brain as a crowded room that's slowly being reorganized. Old pathways, obsessive checking, catastrophizing, replaying worst-case scenarios are like cluttered hallways being cleared. New pathways, curiosity, trust, creative problem-solving are being lit up like fresh corridors. The sensation is just the construction noise of new coherence being installed. When your chest suddenly aches with a strange, sweet pain, don't rush to numb it. That's often grief, leaving grief for all the years you didn't know you were allowed to trust yourself, for all the begging you did when you were already worthy, for all the timelines you stayed in long after they expired. Let it move. Let your heart feel temporarily bigger than your body. That stretch is your emotional field widening to match the reality you're calling in. You may even feel your feet differently. Heavier, more anchored, like the ground is holding you more than you're holding yourself up. That's your root system updating. When your observer loop ran on fear, your feet were always ready to flee to another job, another relationship, another city, another identity. Now, as your field rearranges in your favor, your body starts whispering, "We can root here. We can build here. We are not about to be abandoned by reality." Where? It's that Gifka. This is what embodiment actually means in a quantum context. Not floating away into higher dimensions, but feeling your soul land more fully inside your muscles, bones, organs, breath. The more you allow these sensations without overanalyzing them, the more your nervous system learns. This is what safety feels like now. This is what power feels like now. This is what being chosen by my own life feels like now. You are no longer just thinking about coherence. You are becoming it cell by cell, breath by breath, sensation by sensation. And as your body learns this new language, your timeline is already bending to match it. By now, you've probably sensed it. This shift is no longer just emotional or mental, it's structural. It's woven into your very cells. Your body isn't just processing new ideas, it's rewriting its instructions in response to the stance you've taken. When you stopped begging for signs, you didn't just calm your mind, you sent a broadcast all the way down into your DNA that said, "We're not living the old script anymore." And your DNA heard you. DNA is not a dead blueprint. It's a living interface with the quantum field, constantly listening for the dominant frequency you inhabit. When your observer loop was saturated with desperation, refreshing, checking, doubting, clinging, that frequency told your cells, survive the loop, prepare for disappointment, expect repetition. So your whole system organized around that. Hormones, immune responses, even posture and micro-expressions were all calibrated for almost and not quite. Now, as you rest in "I am the sign," the entire command set changes. Your cells start receiving a different signal. We are allowed to complete the phase transition. The pressure you feel lately, the strange mix of intensity and inevitability, is DNA-level phase transition pressure. You're like water at 99.9 degrees Celsius, trembling right before it becomes steam. Part of you is still shaped like the old container, but the deeper pattern is no longer willing to stay liquid. It's ready to evaporate into a new form of self. This is why certain timelines feel physically impossible now. You try to re-enter old dynamics and your body rebels. Your chest tightens, your stomach twists, your skin feels wrong. You're not being too sensitive. You're experiencing a mismatch between your upgraded DNA frequency and outdated reality tracks that no longer fit your code. Your system is literally rejecting timelines that keep you in begging mode. At the same time, you're noticing how some possibilities feel almost eerily natural, conversations that flow, doors that open, invitations that feel like déjà vu from a future you haven't met yet. That's timeline convergence. As your DNA restructures into coherence, it magnetizes the timeline where that coherence is normal, not rare. The you, who already stopped begging years ago, who lives in stable trust, who moves through life as a walking confirmation, that version is bleeding through. You might feel it as flashes, a sudden surge of confidence that doesn't match your past, a moment where your response is calm and grounded when the old you would have spiraled, a strange inner sentence like, "Of course this is working out for me," landing in your mind without effort. Those aren't random good moods. They're quantum echoes from your higher timeline self, syncing with your current nervous system because your DNA finally has enough coherence to receive the signal. Every breakthrough at this level comes with pressure. The observer loop does not dissolve quietly. It creaks, protests, tries to reassert itself. You'll feel waves of old fear surface, not because you're going backwards, but because the final layers are being steamed out of your cellular memory. When that happens, remember the physics. Phase transition pressure isn't a sign that nothing is working. It's proof that everything is. You are literally too upgraded to fit back into the old loop now. The universe is no longer indulging versions of you that beg, chase, or bargain for crumbs of evidence. Your entanglement with that reality track is thinning. That's why old patterns feel heavier, why your tolerance for misalignment has dropped, why your body screams no in places you used to tolerate for years. Your DNA is enforcing what your soul decided. We're done living timelines that require us to doubt ourselves to belong. Less is face. From the outside, it may look like you're becoming stricter, colder, more distant, but the truth is the opposite. You're becoming truer. Your quantum field is refusing to participate in dynamics that pull you back into fragmentation. You're saying no, not out of bitterness, but out of resonance, because the new code written into your cells simply does not recognize begging as an option anymore. This is the breakthrough. Your timeline is no longer primarily shaped by fear, delay, or external permission. It's being sculpted from the inside out by a consciousness that has remembered its role as the central observer, not the abandoned extra. As that remembrance fully locks into your DNA, the old reality cannot hold you the way it used to. And in the final part of this transmission, you're going to see what that actually means for your mission here, because your quantum field isn't just rearranging reality in your favor for your comfort. It's doing it to prepare you to live as a walking catalyst for humanity's next evolution. There comes a moment in every awakening where the story stops being about concepts and becomes about embodiment. You're standing in that moment now. The observer loop has been exposed. The patterns have been named. The phase transition pressure is undeniable. Your DNA has already begun restructuring. The question that remains is simple and cosmic at the same time. What kind of reality does a consciousness like yours choose to create from here? Because you're not going back. Even if you try, the old timelines won't fit the way they used to. They'll itch, they'll sag, they'll squeeze. You'll feel it in your body every time you attempt to shrink enough to re-enter a version of yourself that needed signs to feel chosen. That costume has been burned. The universe watched you walk through the fire of not knowing, of delayed answers, of silence that felt like abandonment, and it marked you as someone who can be trusted with more coherence, more influence in the quantum field, more responsibility for how your presence rearranges reality around you. From this point forward, you are not a passive recipient of signs. You are a broadcasting tower of alignment. Your thoughts, words, and choices don't just affect your life anymore. They send ripples through the morphic resonance of every soul entangled with you, including ones you will never meet. This is what it means to be awake in a universe of entanglement. You don't get the luxury of believing your energy is only about you. And yet, none of this is heavy. It's the opposite. It's relief. Because when you live as if you are the sign, you no longer waste years negotiating with your own guidance. You stop outsourcing your knowing to random coincidences. You stop begging the quantum field to treat you like a temporary guest and accept that you are part of its core architecture. You were never meant to live as a spiritual refugee, wandering from signal to signal, terrified of missing your one chance. You are not here to beg reality to favor you. You are here to remember that reality is already rearranging to reflect the coherence you stabilize. So what does that look like, practically and cosmically? It looks like moving from this video into your life with a different baseline sentence running under everything. I am not waiting to be picked. I am aligning with what is already mine. It looks like choosing relationships where your nervous system can breathe. Opportunities where your soul feels expanded, not drained. Paths that require your truth, not your self-abandonment, as the entrance fee. It looks like trusting the doors that close as much as the ones that open, because you finally understand your quantum field is curating your reality in your favor now, not punishing you for missteps. It looks like catching yourself when you start to beg, smile gently, and redirect. No, I don't chase signs anymore. I am the sign. 16 Zaviria's Pharaohs. There is elonged. On a cosmic scale, it looks like becoming proof that a human can live from coherence without losing their humanity. You will still feel, you will still grieve, you will still be humbled, but underneath it all, your observer function will be rooted in a knowing that cannot be shaken by temporary appearances. My field is rearranging. Even this is working for me. D9. It for Lu. So, here is the closing transmission, the line your future self has been waiting for you to claim. You are the consciousness that stopped begging the universe for signs and became the living signal of alignment itself. From this moment on, every breath you take, every choice you make, every boundary you hold is a declaration to the quantum field. Once you stop begging for signs, your quantum field does what it was always trying to do. It starts rearranging reality in your favor. Now. And you? You are here to walk it out, so the rest of humanity remembers it too.